What's going on, guys? Welcome to Rabbit's Used Cars. I'm going to sound like a Baptist preacher when I say this, but have you ever had that moment? And weighing on my heart, it felt like I needed to say something, and I get people ask me all the time, what got you into collector car sales? And, why are you such a good salesman? I wish I was a good salesman, or man, I'd do what you did if I had blah, 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 or I'll do this if I'll do this. And you've gotten bits and pieces of the story. You got a lot of the highlight reel. And, you got to understand what got me doing these videos is Ed Bowling. So the thing is, I've done things in my life that Ed Bowling would shit a church hymnal if he heard. So naturally, you're not going to hear that down in Atlanta. Sometimes, no matter how crude things are, I think you need to hear that to get the idea of what you got to do to be successful. And when you put your mind to something, it's easy to say, oh, you put your mind to it, anything you haven't got. Yes, but that's easier said than done. I think when you see by example that it's easier to understand. I know it is for me. Okay, so I feel like this video needs a warning label. Like, all information is deemed reliable. Results may vary. And not responsible if you go to prison. What made you such a good salesman? I didn't come from a long line of super salesmen. It wasn't like my dad was a super salesman. It wasn't like my grandpa. You got to think about it. They had a diesel truck shop. And my grandfather didn't know who his dad was, so that's as far back as I can go. So you got to think about it. My family started and ran a small independent diesel truck repair shop. They ran that. My dad did have a car lot for a few years in high school, and he absolutely hated it. Matter of fact, I ended up running it for him virtually. And he eventually closed that and just kind of came back doing the truck shop full time. He was doing both, and like I'm doing now, which is kind of ironic. But, my dad hated dealing with the public like that. My dad's a good guy, but he really wasn't an outgoing guy like that. He was, if you knew him, he'd talk your ear off. But, anybody knew, he was kind of short and to the point. So he wasn't like the best salesman material. I wouldn't say he was a bad one necessarily, just wasn't the best at it. And he didn't like the whole sitting around waiting game, which that's sales. That's just part of it. So I didn't come from a long line of super salesmen. The only thing I can really say about that is, I guess it's just entrepreneurship in general. Maybe just seeing my family, fight and struggle with this truck shop to get it where it was, and all the stories over the years, like the $300 in a prayer story, like my grandfather starting the truck shop, and hell, even like the water company guy story in the mall, things like that. I love stories like that. I grew up on those things. And I think a lot of that motivated me. Like a lot of times, like these stories motivate you guys, but like, how did you get started? Like the questions get more and more in depth. So I've been thinking about this. Actually, I was thinking about while I was in the shower this morning. Webster's sitting in the bathroom floor. I'm in the shower. You know what I'm saying? Hitting all the high spots, going at it. And I started thinking about, like, where did it start? I got to stop this story to take you to another story now. Where did it all start? Sales 101 with Rob. My very first sales hustle. 6th grade, Berea Middle School. My parents every weekend would go to like Sam's and like Costco and, bought shit in bulk for some reason, because there was only 3 of us, but I don't know why, but they liked going there. There was like this real big, back then, there was a sour candy that everybody loved in my school, and it was called Crybabies. And they were like these little sour gumball things. And they taste like total ass, but everybody loved them. And like, you had to go to like the right gas station to get them. Well, they sold them in like this big container, like 500 in there or something like that. I remember conning my mother into buying me that. And I was selling those out of my locker in middle school. I actually got wrote up for that, but I didn't get wrote up for necessarily selling. So the funny part of this, Miss Reed, my 6th grade homeroom teacher, and our lockers were like right there in the classroom. They were a homeroom class, basically. So, you know, when we went and changed, you had to go back technically to homeroom if you want to swap books or whatever out. You know, they were little, it was middle school, they were little lockers. And of course I had, you know, a container this big full of those crybaby things in there. I was selling for like, you know, 50 cents or something like that. I don't remember exactly what I had, but anyway, and they were selling, business was good. You know, I mean, I was pleased with my business. And, you know, word got around in the 7th grade hall and in the 8th grade hall that there's this kid in Miss Reed's class that's selling crybabies. So next thing you know, I had, between class changes, I had a pretty good hustle going for that 3, 4, 5 minutes. You know, and I'd always throw a handful in my pocket, just catch those stragglers that were running a little late. I'll never forget, I had an Ilskin money clip. And you're probably Googling what that is, but you know, it's like a magnetic, like money clip, but it was Ilskin. My dad gave it to me. I just thought it was the coolest thing ever. One of them J.R. Ewing looking things you would have. And there's no reason in the world for a kid in the 6th grade to have that, but I just thought it was the neatest thing ever. You know, like it snapped, you know, put your money in it, which I had like 5 $1 bills in it, but you know what I'm saying? Like put it in my front pocket, I'll be that guy. Well, you got to think about it. You know, you go from a lot of change to a lot of dollars, and then you start switching those dollars. And so my grandfather would pick me up on Wednesdays, my mom's dad. He would pick me up on Wednesdays from school. He was like one of those old men that put dollar bills up, like he saved every dollar bill he had. Like he was like, you know, like every year he'd cash out, like he'd have like, you know, $5,000 worth of ones at the end of the year. But he was that guy. He would buy my ones from me on Wednesdays. So it's like my banker. He'd buy my ones from me. So I would switch my ones to 20s. I'd go back every weekend and go buy more crybabies. And I got into selling some other things, you know, candy stuff. And money clip, I had a little roll going there, you know. I think might have had $160, you know, less than $200 in there. But I mean, like you pull it out and you got a little stack of 20s in there, a little kid in the 6th grade, kind of a red flag. And I'll never forget, Miss Reed actually pulled me to the side because she thought I was selling drugs. And I said, no, I'm selling candy. Well, that's still against the rules in school. So I got sent to the principal's office and I got wrote a referral for that. I remember my mother coming in. They took my money from me. And like the principal was holding it. And like my mother had to come in and, you know, of course my dad chewed my ass out about it. And he said, he said, I'm glad you know, that you got a little initiative, a little drive about you, but you focus on your school, whatnot. So I kind of let that calm down. But that was like my first little sales gig. And that's 6th grade. And then 7th grade, 8th grade, of course, get into school. You gotta think about it. I sold my first car when I was 16. So this is a big step here. Not one of my proudest moments, forewarned. You gotta understand, my generation and when I grew up was a different time than now. And you know it's gonna be good when I have to break it down for you like that. You gotta understand, this was 90s, 94, 95. Still bad, but more accepted than now. I mean, I'd rather get caught with a damn ounce of weed than a cart of smokes now, but unfortunately, it's just the way things have changed. Everybody knows I smoke cigarettes. Just saying. Well, what did everybody do in high school back then? They smoked cigarettes. That was the popular thing. That was the guy thing, and a lot of the gals did it too, and just don't know why, you just did. So I got a job at the grocery store. So my father would drop me off to school, and I was originally supposed to take the bus, and the biggest reason I got a job is so I didn't have to take the damn bus home. So because there was a grocery store directly behind the school, so I could just walk straight up the back gate, and I'd be in their parking lot. So I'd walk over there and work from like 4 to 8. Well, I made a buddy in the produce department at this grocery store who was like 19 and, you know, just a total waste of air looking back at it. But at the time, I thought he was a cool dude. And, you know, the other thing about cigarettes back then were $1.75 a pack. If I needed cigarettes, I'll just tell him, you know, buy me a pack of smokes, man. You know, he would. Well, the next thing you know, it was like, you know, everybody, like I always had cigarettes and nobody else had one. Like you go to the bathroom to go burn one right quick, or you walk out back to go burn one, everybody want to bum a cigarette off of you. There ain't nothing worse than a damn bum. And I started thinking about it. Opportunity. So what I did, I want a carton of cigarettes. So I made $80 a week. You know, you got to think carton of cigarettes back then was 28 bucks, something like that, 23 bucks, whatever it was for on sale. So I basically took my check and cashed it at the grocery store, gave him the money, and said, buy me cigarettes. So I bought cartons of cigarettes. I had an old blue nylon book bag that was somebody gave me or something like that. And I stuck these cigarettes in there and tore the tops off the cartons where I could just, like that. I started selling cigarettes for $5 a pack in school. And then, of course, got in the Trans Am, and then I had a stock house that I could lock up in the back of the Trans Am. If you ever put T-tops, which my Trans Am didn't have T-tops, it was a hard top, but where the T-tops would go in the back, you got that deep tunnel that had that cover that came over it. You know how many cartons of cigarettes you can put in the back of a Trans Am? I do. And then the next thing you know, word got around, hey, if you need smokes, you go see Rob, he'll hook you up. $5 a pack, $5 a pack, $5 a pack. Well, next thing you know, I was making a couple $100 a week just playing around and then working at the grocery store. I took that money and bought my very first flip car, which was a 1979 Ford Mustang. Bought it for $800. Double my money on it, and from there it was just one after another, and then started a cleanup business with a buddy of mine, detailing cars, doing things like that. And then, by the time that I got out of school, I was working at CarMax, and of course all the CarMax stories and all that stuff and whatnot. But you got to have that hustle. And the thing is, it's so crazy that one little move that I made back then changed everything for me, because I love it. I love selling. I love taking a little bit and making a lot out of it, making more out of it, that entrepreneur mindset is all it is. And just doing that. It's funny how it started. And the thing you gotta understand is, that was a pretty big jump from selling a couple pack of cigarettes to buying a car. But then you gotta think about it. I started working at CarMax. I worked at CarMax for a few years. Started working at a truck shop. And then that's when the bug, I want to start buying, flipping cars. Well, I had a little bit of capital, but not big capital. And that's what got me in the eBay thing. That was the whole reason I started selling cars, consigning cars to eBay for car lots. And you got to think about it. I had 30 car lots. I mean, at any given week, I was selling 100 cars a month. When you're 23 years old, and this is something that everybody needs to hear, when you're 23 years old, you got a house that cost about $100,000 and it was paid for from just your side hustle. There wasn't a lot of 23-year-olds, especially in 2002, that was making $30,000 a month. Cash. It was nuts, it was just like, man, making money hand over fist, sent my first wife to college, paid for every bit of it. No scholarships, no grants, no lottery money, none of that BS. Or, paying for a house, stupid vacations, brand new cars. Silly things. And this is the thing I want to stress to people. My mindset and my hustle were epic. But I never thought ahead. Like, what happens if this stops? And I didn't do that. I didn't think ahead. I went out and just bought more and more. And I'll be honest with you, you got to think the hundreds of thousands of dollars I made in about 5 years. When it all came crumbling down, other than a house that was paid for, and I had a 2005 Chevrolet Corvette, nothing to show for it. Like, all the money that I pissed away, all this stuff that has no longevity. And there's nothing wrong with splurging and doing something fun for yourself. Like, I remember, and this was back in my drug dealing golfer that preaches on the side days. But I remember walking into a jewelry store in Atlanta, and there's this old white man that worked there. And I was looking at the watches, and I've always liked nice watches and things like that. And they had a Wittenauer watch. And Wittenauer basically was like the most expensive battery-powered watch you could buy. And this thing was tacky. God, it was tacky. I mean, it's like real wide, and it was gold, and it had what's that, Swarovski crystals in the band. It had a diamond bezel on it. I mean, this thing was just straight up Mr. T. I had to have it. I just thought that was the coolest thing ever. Like, I remember buying that watch. And the funny part about it was this old white man, and his name was Michael Jordan. And he said, just think, whenever you're wearing this watch and somebody asks where you got it from, you can tell them you bought it from Michael Jordan. And I'm like, yeah, I mean, the dumbest shit ever. Just stupid. Looking back, idiotic. Not planning for anything, not, hey, let's invest some of this, or hey, let's buy some property, or hell, let's just put it in a savings account. Nope. Seen a new Corvette, I bought it. You know why I bought a new Corvette? Because my dad bought one. He financed it. I paid cash for mine. Did I need it? No, sat in the garage. Come to find out, it was the only car I had to drive. I drove it to work every day when I worked at the Ford place. And the thing I think about, when the eBay thing come crushing down, you got to understand, so hardest story I never told. I'll spare you the details. Horrible divorce, which was just horrible. I mean, I basically just my heart went out, and I just run into the ground, everything. The eBay thing. And I mean, just my world just come crumbling down. And I was in a bad spot, and comedy pulled me out of that, doing stand-up and stuff like that, Funny Money and all that. You can go back to those videos. The other part of that is it taught me a very valuable lesson. One, the world don't owe you shit. I mean, it will chew you up and spit you out. And all this time, it was just, I was on top of the world. You couldn't tell me nothing. I make money, bud. I'll go buy anything I want to buy, because I can always go make more money. Well, what happens when that don't make money no more? And I think that was a lesson that I'm glad I learned it in my 20s. That, that I think a lot of people learn a little later in life, because they kind of get established a little later. That I learned that everything can end tomorrow. Anything can change. And that really woke me up. And, and I love when people talk about new car sales. And I love the comments. I remember when I did the VinWiki video, Best Sales Day Ever, which was my first day at the Ford place. And the part you didn't hear in that story is my $800 Halliburton briefcase, awesome purchase. I couldn't even I think it's under the seat of my truck right now, I think. I carried my briefcase in there that was empty. There was a pack of crackers in there and a pen. And I had like $6 to my name my very first day at the Ford place. I sold 9 cars one day, But, or was actually 8 and then one the next. But still, you got to think, and everyone's like, well, you got lucky or that. And I did get lucky selling that amount. But I want to tell you something. I had to hit the ground running, because I had to be able to make a draw. They told me that, so I started like on a Monday, and like Monday, Tuesday, and like every 2 weeks you could make a draw on your monthly check. So I knew I had to make 2 weeks work. So I had to hit the ground running, so I had something to make a draw against. And I'm like, and I did, and it worked out. And, worked Ford place, and that went great. And for all the smart asses, what was the next day like? Actually, I sold 2 cars my next day. You can't be scared to put a little sweat equity into something. And everybody wants, more. And everybody, it's like right now, it blows my mind. I literally passed a homeless guy. I'm assuming he's homeless. He's holding a sign, and it says, "We'll work for food," or "Down on my luck," or whatever. And there's help wanted signs all around him. And he's standing there. I mean, you could literally hock a loogie and hit 5 damn places around him that are hiring. And he's panhandling. I hate that mentality, because you want someone to better your life for you. And I'm not saying, if you're sick, or if you're disabled, or there's a reason why you can't work, that don't apply to this. But there's so many able-minded, able-bodied people. They're just lazy, just slack. And I have lazy days just like everybody else. But I'm gonna tell you something. The moment I wake up and my feet hit the ground, I'm thinking about the next dollar I'm gonna make. Now, still to this day. Rent's due every day on the game of life. And you can't be too good to do something. You see all these guys that went to college. I barely graduated high school. And I was smart. I wasn't stupid. I just didn't apply myself. And I could have went to college. I mean, it wasn't really a reason in the world, other than I think it was a waste of time for me, personally. But then you've got guys that, go to school and get, all this stuff. And you got to agree, that you sat in your chair and you were there this many hours and you listened and you turned in your assignments and you got this thousands of dollars piece of paper that says you're good at this, whatever. And so much weight gets put on that. And I think the reason that so much weight gets put on that is because they're selling that. Something else I've noticed in the world. Speaking of that, colleges sales. When you're looking online, that big pretty website, and you go tour the campus, they're selling you on the idea of you give us money, we give you education, you get a good job. In a perfect world, yes, it does work like that. But you also got to understand they're selling that to you. They're selling you on that. Sales is a part of every facet of life, every business. I don't give a damn if you got an OnlyFans page. You're marketing your merch. Probably the best way I could put that. Selling collector cars in downtown Greenville. That's sales. I mean, hell, if you have a church, you're in sales. I actually got in a spirited debate with a preacher one time about this. And he goes, son, sales has no place in the Lord's house. And that was his exact words. And I said, I beg to differ. He said, I'm all ears. And I said, so you're telling me when you're standing up there on that podium and you're looking out over the congregation, if they don't like what you're saying, one, they're going to leave. Two, they're not going to put any bread in the basket, if you catch my drift, when that offering plate comes around. You're selling the idea. There's a church on every corner, bud, just like there's a college on every corner. You got to understand that they're selling you. Sales is a part of every facet of life and business in general. It kind of puts joy in my old cold heart when I see a guy that they got that little twinkle in his eye, you know what I mean? And just tell he's a hustler. I can talk to you for 15 seconds and tell if you got it or not. I love it because I see that little spark and I love it. I love those guys. Hey, Rabbit, I got my first flip, or hey, Rabbit, I doubled my money on this, or hey, I sold these ATVs, or hey, I sold this, or hey, whatever. And I love that because sales is like my passion project in life. I sell collector cars for a living. I do it because I want to. I don't do it because I need to anymore. That's the big thing. Like, you understand, if I worked at a retail dealership somewhere, I sell needs. Everyone needs a car to get where they need to go. I sell wants. I sell a toy. I sell you a car you don't need. That's my job. Man, I love it. I love it. I get to wake up every day and play with old cars and make fun of douchebag Matt. And I love it. And, so it really kind of gets me, it just really makes me smile seeing people take interest in sales like that. And don't look at it like a stepping stone, because that's a career. And, just like being a baker or being a carpenter or being a plumber or being a damn astronaut, whatever. Because sales is such an important thing. I'm not just talking about being a cheesy used car salesman. I'm talking about, being a realtor or being anything. I mean, you got to understand, selling a product for a company, marketing. I absolutely love it. I'm sorry I didn't mean to bore you guys with a big, long boner speech, but hopefully your britches were tight, because when I sit down, I deliver. Guys, hopefully this little spark in your ass. We'll catch you next time at Rabbit's Used Cars. There needs a warning label. Like, all information is deemed reliable. Results may vary. And not responsible if you go to prison. Rabbit. A lot of that motivated me. Like, a lot of times, like, these stories motivate you guys. Or you guys. But 6th grade, Berea Elementary, or